This is the City of Waupaca's City Plan Commission meeting.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get going. I'd like to call this public hearing to order. And for the record, all the commissioners are present, as well as Mayor Smith is joining us remotely. Good afternoon, everyone. We're here for two public hearings. The first public hearing is for a conditional use permit for Foundations for Living, Inc., 1310 Royalton Street. And then I'm going to ask Jared to describe the description of the hearing.
Of course. So this one is for 1310 Royalton Street. This parcel is zoned B1 Neighborhood Business District. The proposed land uses include a boarding house / lodging house and resource center. The resource center would be a permitted use on the current zoning district, but the boarding house, lodging house land use in our land use matrix would be conditional. So that is being brought forward here today. The structure is a two-story structure. They are looking to have the lodging house, boarding house section of this land use on the upper story. On the main level would be office space and the resource center. That's the gist of it. I'm happy to take any questions when the time comes.
Very good. Thanks, Jared. Because this is a public hearing, we're here to take testimony. So anyone in the audience in favor of the conditional use permit and would like to speak in favor, please come to the podium. And I believe we allow 3 minutes for your comments. If there's anyone who would like to comment. Yes, sir. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Sorry. Bob Adams. My home address is 1029th Street, Waupaca, Wisconsin. Just speaking in favor to it as the executive director of Foundations for Living, we realize that we don't want the riffraff of our homeless shelter over there, which we're already doing at Foundations for Living. And so we want to be respectful of the neighbors and the neighborhood there. I was formerly on the Pregnancy Information Center board when I was at that building back in 2005. And so we're looking to use it strictly as a resource center downstairs with operating hours between 9 and 4. It'll be fully staffed. And then the lodging house upstairs would be fully staffed as well, 365 days a year as well, with a paid staff member. And so the clientele that will stay there is different from the homelessness that we deal with at Foundations for Living. Though the people might be homeless, these are people that we're going to be working with our caseworker to have a plan in place to get a job and find permanent housing, working with our caseworker. And so if they don't stick to that plan, then they will be moved back to the warming center at Foundations for Living. And so it's a twofold program. But yet we want to be very respectful of the neighborhood and where we function.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any further testimony in favor? Well, then I guess we move to testimony in opposition to the conditional use permit. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? Okay. Well, it looks like we can close this particular public hearing. Right. Okay. So the next public hearing.
Henry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think there was somebody is.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Please, are you speaking in favor or in opposition?
Opposition.
Okay. Please come up. That's fine. Come up to the mic and state your name and address, and then keep your comments to those 3 minutes, please.
I live at 1321 Crystal Court.
Okay.
My backyard runs right into the building. I just want to make sure that whoever stays there, because I have 2 little kids that run around in my backyard and a dog, and there's no fence to fence anything off. So I just want to make sure that whoever stays there understands that my backyard is the only safe place for my kids to play because they're so little, that I just want to make sure my backyard stays safe, that I don't have strangers wandering in my yard because there is nothing to prevent them from staying out of my yard. So I just want to make sure that my kids are still safe.
Thank you very much. Can you state your name, please?
Marcy Kemke.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. I think we get a rebuttal then. If there's anybody who would like to speak in a favor again, may do so now. Again, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Robin Matson. I live at N4825 Highway Q in Waupaca. I am the former executive director and current chairman of the board of Foundations for Living. We are very much aware of the safety issue and wanting to make sure it's safe, so we do plan on putting a fence back there, a wooden fence back between there.
Okay. Thank you, Robin. I think it's with a D. Okay, so formally, we have to allow another rebuttal or in opposition, I guess, to the conditional use permit, if there's anybody else that would like to speak in opposition. Otherwise, we can close this particular public hearing. Okay, everybody's good? All right, so the next item for the public hearing is conditional use permit for A&N Waupaca LLC at 701 South Industrial Drive. And Jared, please describe.
Of course. So this one is for 701 South Industrial Drive. This conditional use permit, excuse me, I apologize, this property is zoned B4 Strip Commercial District. It is a multi-tenant structure. Currently, businesses in there include 2 distribution centers, and as well as a vacant space. And then the new land use that is looking to go in is sales, service, and repair of construction equipment and similar heavy equipment. I will say this land use is what we're classifying as. It isn't quite that land use, though. It's kind of a subcategory. It's actually equipment rental. So they will be running a rental center out of part of this building. So currently, those different businesses are operating in this structure. The zoning was recently changed in this area to kind of align with the future land use map and the current businesses that are in there. So this one's just a new business going in which we're coming forward with a conditional use permit for.
Well, thank you for the explanation. Anyone that would like to speak in favor of the conditional use permit, please come to the podium and state your name and address and keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Douglas Middleton, E5047, State Highway 2254, Waupaca. I'm for it. I'm representative mobility for vets, which is next door. I think it'll really help our business with the traffic, so people say, oh, let's go. So I am for it.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any more in favor? Okay. Seeing none, anyone in opposition to the conditional use permit? Okay. Going once? Going twice? Okay. So we'll go ahead and close this public hearing for the A&N Waupaca LLC and move into our regular meeting. So call this meeting of the Plan Commission for November 2nd, excuse me. For the record, all commissioners are present, and Mayor Smith, I believe, is still joining us remotely. So the first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Any motion to do so?
So move for approval. Second.
Okay, Fair made the motion. Wayne seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. The first item on the agenda is the minutes for the October 5 public hearing, as well as the meeting minutes for October 5. And those are in your packet. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
Jared has a question.
I do not believe these are in your packet, but they were distributed via email.
Thank you. And yes, we saw those. Did everybody see Jared's email? Okay, great.
Yep.
So you guys saw the minutes. Is there a motion to adopt?
Move to approve?
Wayne
Second.
first, and Angela seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Action items, letter A, conditional use permit for Foundations for Living at 1310 Royalton Street. Go ahead, Jared, and describe it again, and we'll have a
of course.
discussion.
So this one starts on page 2 of your packets. This is for 1310 Royalton Street. This parcel is currently zoned to B1 Neighborhood Business District. The conditional use is specifically for boarding house, lodging house. Foundations for Living is looking to use the latter half of that land use, which is lodging house. They are looking to use that specific use on the upper second story of this structure. The lower story will be resource center as well as an office for the permanent member of the staff. The specific, again, land use that they're looking at for the conditional use is lodging house. The other land use would be permitted in the district. Happy to take any questions.
The commissioners have any questions for Jared?
Jared, you at the end of the, in the packet, you put down the conditions. Have you met with the party on all of those conditions, and have they approved all of those conditions?
The packet was sent out to them. I did not hear on anything about the conditions. Or their piece of the agenda, their piece of the packet was sent to them to notify them of this meeting. But I did not have any specific conversations with them on the conditions.
Okay. But you're comfortable with the fact that those would all be met?
Yep. They're pretty standard conditions across the board. And a lot of them, like condition 6, which is all building code requirements shall be met and maintained. They're currently working with their architect as well as our building inspector for that. 1 is standard. 2 is in relation, just a requirement that they need to make sure if there's any federal or state requirements for their facility, as it is in relation to their nonprofit. That's for up to them to maintain. Applicant shall complete all and receive approval for all of their zoning and building permits. So that would be if they're doing any alterations, they would come in for a permit at that time. A fence would require the permit. Number 4 is standard. Number 5 would just be a standard requirement if they were to change anything for their site plan. So if they were to add an addition or tear down a structure, things like that, they need to do a site plan for the property. So pretty standard. Otherwise, all the other ones that are more non-standard should be able to be met pretty easily.
The applicant is fine with the conditions?
Yep.
Any other questions? Are we ready to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve. Is this a recommendation to council?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So
Thank
I will
you.
move that we recommend approval of this conditional use permit to council.
Okay, Eric's made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second. And just a reminder, excuse me, that the council then will have the chance to take this up at their next meeting. Date, I don't know at the moment, but.
Very good, thank you.
15th.
Okay. Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, cool. So I guess we're ready for a vote. Is this, we can just do it by voice, right? Is this, okay, so all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. So the next item is conditional use permit, A&N Waupaca LLC, 701 South Industrial Drive. Jared?
Thank you very much. So this one starts on page 12 of your packets. This is for 701 South Industrial Drive. This is a multi-tenant structure. Currently, there are 2 distribution centers in this, or distribution businesses in this facility. The new business that is looking to go in is a rental center, which we have classified per our zoning code as sales, service, and repair of construction equipment and similar equipment. The property owner is looking to begin that business in January, if approved. The other businesses would remain the same and remain intact within the multi-tenant structure.
Okay, good. Is there a representative from the business here that would like to say anything?
From my knowledge, looking in the audience, representative would not be here.
Okay.
Again, they were sent out the same, their packet or their portion of the packet. No comments were received directly from them. They are all pretty standard, I guess, conditions, with the exception of number 5. So with some changes in our zoning code that occurred when we did an overhaul of it back in 2020, there were some nonconformities that were created with, again, the idea that through some other zoning changes or phases in our zoning code revisions, they would be back into compliance. So when those revisions happen, we will see another conditional use come forward to allow those officially within that zoning district. Right now, they're acting as non-conforming uses. They're allowed to continue as is. But again, looking to bring that parcel back into conformity when we kind of complete our zoning code changes. All the rest are standard conditions, and no issues were had from my knowledge.
So given the description you just mentioned about bringing them back into code, so to speak, so what kind of a time frame then are you looking at, or are they looking at, that would make everything ready to move forward?
In the discussion portion of your agenda today, we're actually going to be looking at a land use matrix that would be part of that change. So right now, for them to be back in compliance is actually the ball's in our court. So timeline for that would look to be, we'd be looking for a discussion today. December, you would see it in ordinance format. It would then go to the council, most likely the first meeting in January, and then the second meeting in January, and that's where it would be officially approved or denied. So if it's approved on that timeline, they would have the opportunity to bring their property back into compliance come third week of January. And they will be doing so anyways, as they are looking at other site changes on their property. So it kind of aligns with some improvements that they're also looking to do.
So this is just the first step in a rather lengthy process, lengthy being several different steps. But
Yes. The original idea was for this to actually come forward with both of the other conditional uses, but they are looking to start this in January right away. As they've already purchased the building, they're looking at doing site improvements yet this year that doesn't affect this use, but just the site in general. So they are looking to start as soon as possible in January when they are ready to. So with that, they had to come forward for a conditional use permit now in order to have approval by that time.
Okay, thanks.
Any other commissioners? Questions for Jared? Okay, it looks like we're ready to take some action. Is there any motions? Are there any motions?
And
Make a
again,
motion.
this would go to council.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
I will make a motion to approve it to send to council.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion. We got a second. Any further discussion?
Second by Wayne.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, let's go take a vote. Is all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are on 3C, ordinance number 22-2022, amendment to chapter 14.06, parent 2, construction of buildings, Wisconsin Uniform Dwelling Code adopted, and chapter 14.12, application of state codes. Well, now we know why the audience is leaving. That was a long one. Okay. All right. So, Jared, work us through this, please.
All right, so this is it's going to be a pretty complicated one. It actually might take us to about 6. Totally kidding. So this is actually a requirement per the state. So we are delegated as a commercial plan review city, so we can perform our own plan review, which has many benefits of currently the state's 10 weeks out. Our inspectors can do plan review within a week or two. It also benefits us that instead of the state getting the revenue from that, the city gets the revenue from that and can put it back into the city. So there's just a lot of great benefits with it. We are blessed to have a commercial building inspector currently that can support this. We're also extremely fortunate that we have an electrical commercial inspector now, another one. We did lose Jerry Duman, who is also our fire chief. He just had too many irons in the fire and had to take a step back. So we're fortunate enough that we've actually been able to find another commercial electrical inspector that we can keep this designation and ball rolling. So per state requirements, we do need to adopt a section of our code as it relates to SPS 327, which is relating to camping units. I would love to tell you more about what that is, but I cannot. If you do, I can give you the state contact, and I'm sure they can tell you all about it. I'm sure it's a jarring story that they can tell, but it's just a requirement we have to adopt to stay delegated. So it's no different than us adopting the code that says we will follow the state electrical code or the state building code. So we just got to follow the code for camping units if we ever were to do any in the city. So.
Okay, and this would be another item that would be a recommendation?
Yeah, so this would be a recommendation to council.
Ordinance, yeah,
and then
okay.
ordinances would actually, ordinances would have a public hearing at council.
Okay.
Yep, and 2 readings.
Jared, would you just remind us, you're referring to the ordinance, I think I got the right one here, on page 22?
Yes, 22, and it's actually
23.
ordinance 2222.
So is
Serendipity.
Yeah. So, yeah, right. So letter C on page 23 did you insert that in red?
On page 23. Yes, so on page 23, that's the red line of what's changing. So if you see on page 23, there's a letter C in red, and then right below that, there's the language SPS 327 in red. So if you scroll up to the ordinance, you'll find under section 1 that same letter C, just in ordinance format. And then if you go directly below that to the next bold, in the first sentence, you'll see SPS 327, which we are just adding within that. So it's just a red line showing you exactly what's changing. We just have it more simplified for ordinance, as when we post this in the paper charges us per character.
And
If
this
you
requires
want that detail.
two readings of the council as
Yep.
well?
Yep.
Okay. Commissioners have any other questions for Jared? If not, we'd probably entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 22, 2022.
I'll second.
Yeah, and with the idea, that's a recommendation to
Recommendation.
council.
Okay,
Yep.
council, yep.
Good, okay, so we got Olson made a motion and Fair seconded the motion to recommend approval to council. So we need a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries. And the final action item is ordinance number 23-2022, amendment to chapter 17.205, accessory structures and uses. Jared?
Yeah, so this one starts on page 24 of your packets. This is ordinance number 2322 as it relates to accessory structures within our zoning code. So at a previous meeting, we did discuss this just as a discussion item, where currently the language in our code reads accessory structures are prohibited in the street yard or primary street yard. So essentially that is saying that any street yard, they are prohibited. We run into issues then when we have maybe a property that has a street in their front and their street in their back, or if they have a corner property where they have a street on their front and on their side. So it kind of restricts exactly where you can set that. So in the cases of, especially the properties where they have a street on their rear and on their front, it significantly reduces the area where they can put accessory structures, and in some cases, along with the other setback requirements, it actually makes it somewhat impossible for them to have any, subsistence accessory structure. They could have a small one, of course, but people are always looking for at least something that could fit their lawnmower and snowblower. So, just trying to make this a little easier. I know this was a discussion in the past, so trying to bring this back up, make this kind of conform a little bit better with the times. One thing that was brought up last time in our discussion was the fact that we want to make sure this doesn't prohibit any vehicle sight lines if they're turning or if they're in the street, anything like that. So actually, we did already start to plan for that in our setback requirements for accessory structures. And I took this one out of the R1. If you go to page 25, you'll see a red line. But on the page there's a table at the very bottom. And I highlighted the current setbacks we have for any secondary street yard. So I guess to kind of run through the whole process, right now we don't allow them in any secondary street yard. If this goes through, we would. And if it goes through, then we would follow these setbacks for secondary street yards. So they would have to be set back 20 feet minimum, which would alleviate any vehicle sightline issues, walking in the pedestrian walking, or if the street were to ever expand, we wouldn't have any issues with them. They'd be far enough away. So we should be supported with those setbacks if we do choose to move forward and allow them in those secondary street yards. Happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jared? So like the previous item, this would be a recommendation to council and then to, set a public hearing. Anybody wants to make a motion? Could make a recommendation to council?
I'll move to recommend to council.
Okay, we got a motion, second?
I'll second.
Okay, Angela seconded it. Is there any further discussion?
Just a question, Jared, on all of those subsequent pages after the one you just pointed out, 28, 29, all of those things that are in red are the changes you made, which reflect what you've talked about. Is that correct?
So right now, the only two pages you'll be looking at in your packet are pages 24, which actually has the true ordinance that we'd be looking at recommending to council, and 25, which is the red line. 26 is the start of our discussion, which would be item 4A or 4.
Okay, so it's just those two pages.
Yep, just those two pages. The only change we're making is reducing or eliminating the three words street, yard, or.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you.
I have a quick question. Do you think that most properties, like say a smaller lot on a corner, do you think the 20 feet will still be doable for those properties?
Yes, it should be. So on the corner lots, it's a little different too. They still have a lot of backyard to play with. It really is more of a hindrance on those properties that have a secondary street yard in their rear yard. So 20 feet should be more than enough for the corner lots. And then it should be ample for any standard sized lot that we would allow in the city. There may be some that the lot is very small to begin with, and it may not be able to support it, but we'd also be running into other issues there with looking at open space and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it could kind of open up a couple other cans of worms if in that specific instance. But for, I will say 95% of the lots, it would be adequate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, we got a motion and a second to shoot this up to the council. Everyone in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So now we're into some discussion items. So go ahead, Jared, lead us.
Yeah. So this discussion item is going to start on page 26 of your packet. So this is, it'll go from 26 to 34. So it is a pretty lengthy one. This is one that I've put in the packet as a discussion item for quite a few times just to make sure you guys were all able to see it, take time, look at it, offer any comments. This is actually something that the mayor and I sat down with and went over line by line, just discussing what exact land use each of these items would entail as true, real-time examples. If they were in kind of the correct districts at what we should be looking at, and then their status as permitted, conditional, or prohibited. So took a look at, again, line by line, went through this. No comments were received, I guess, each of the times that I've brought it forward as a discussion. So bringing this forward as a phased approach, I want to say kind of the easier part bringing forward now is phase one. There's a more significant part when we get to look at the civil land uses, which we have to kind of look at our public land use zoning district, the requirements in that. So it kind of gets a bit more complex. So I wanted to kind of bring this forward in discussion item at one final time for phase one. And then at the December Plan Commission meeting, I'd bring it forward in ordinance format. I will say the one thing that I did not change in this matrix that I would like to include in the ordinance would it be relating to hotels and their allowance in the B7 district. And so, I mean, with that being more downtown, you're more looking at the boutique hotels at smaller scale, things like that. But allowing that in the B7 as it is also allowed in the B2 district. So that's one item that I would be adding to the ordinance that is not in this matrix. That could be found on page 28, kind of mid-page. But other than that, as you see the red line changes, that's what would be being brought forward to you. Again, some of the changes would be just things that don't make sense. Like we have crockery stores, lunch rooms, things that not quite sure what land use those would actually entail. We have others that are kind of duplicated that we more condensed into one category, like ice cream is going to now be classified as a restaurant. It's a food establishment. Same with coffee. It's a food establishment. Department stores would be another example. That would be retail. There's some outdated terms that we're looking at correcting, and then trying to condense the list to make it a little more user-friendly, understandable, and up with the times. So happy to take any questions. Again, no ordinance format for this one now, but I would look to take whatever comments now or we receive tonight and make that into an ordinance and bring it back at the next Plan Commission meeting for recommendation.
We probably should have some kind of action to, direct the staff to do that, maybe. For the record, I don't think it's problematic, right? Let them bring us back an ordinance. But we should probably, what do you think? Go ahead and direct them to do so? So I have something in the minutes?
And if that were to be done, I would also recommend that one noted change for the hotels in the B7.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I got a question.
Okay.
What's a business incubator?
Yeah, so business incubator. So that would be, I believe Iola has one, but that would be similar to if I had a shared kitchen or a shared office space. It's a entrepreneurial space that people could come. Maybe if it's, I'll run on the shared kitchen idea. Maybe it's a beef jerky company who they don't really have a commercial kitchen to run out of, to sell their product as its food. It needs to be a certified commercial kitchen with the right equipment, right everything for them to get approval for their product. So because they don't have that, they can't afford it because they're just a little business. They would go to this business incubator shared kitchen space, and they would use that commercial kitchen for their product. They'd make what they need to be. They'd kind of rent it out, and then they'd be on their way until they need it next. So it's kind of that incubation space of a entrepreneur wanting to take the next step, but just they don't have those resources. They don't have the facilities to do so.
I've never heard it before.
Yeah, could be the same. Like if maybe you're a graphic designer, maybe this business incubator space had licenses for Adobe. That could be something. Where that's $1,000 license at times, depending on what you're getting. It could be a monthly membership that you just use it for when you need it, kind of thing, or lots of different instances where you could use it. But the commercial kitchen is probably the best example. Is it the easiest to relate to?
So Jared, most everything on these pages that you've outlined in red are going to disappear.
No. I guess if it's crossed out, yes.
Yeah, crossed out.
Yep.
So it obviously is going to condense this whole thing. So in the future, if I were to, and use your example, if I wanted to open an ice cream store downtown, where do I look now for that, whether or not I need is a permitted use or condition? Where does that fall under then?
So like coffee would be restaurants. So we'd be looking at we'd look at the restaurant section. So if I scroll down to restaurants here, we have the category of restaurants other than drive-in, drive-through, and walk-up order service. So that would be like Little Fat Gretchen's would be the restaurants other than drive-in, drive-through, or walk-up. Aquamos, a coffee shop, would be a good example. They'd now be a restaurant other than drive-in, drive-through, walk-up.
So basically what you've done is made a lot more generic terms, generic
Yep.
areas, and then these specifics would just all come under that.
Yep. And I'll also say, so, started this process of walking through it. I was actually at a conference and I talked to Appleton, the city of Appleton, somebody from their economic development department, and this is something they've actually undergone as well. Again, just as we've went throughout time, we've added these specific crockery store, things like that maybe are no more. The business has changed. Also just as you get more and more specific, it kind of really restricts the different things that could go in. So just by loosening this up, still having it in there that we're regulating it, we're doing it properly, we're making sure it's in the right districts, but yeah, condensing them, making it some categories more general where they should be to again accommodate the times, the changing in businesses, just the current climate.
Okay. Yep. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? So if not, we get a motion to have direct the staff to work on this, bring us back an ordinance.
So moved.
Seconded.
And a motion by Fair, a second by Wayne to direct the planning staff to create an ordinance around these discussion points that we just did. All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then we have monthly, okay, go ahead, Jared. Monthly permit reports and code enforcement status reports.
Yeah, so this one's actually a discussion item for this specific meeting. Typically, it is in our report section. So, as you may or may not know, we are switching software systems for permitting. We are going from the permit software system Unilogic to a permit software system called SmartGov. The main reason for this is to cut down on administrative time of inputting permits. So we're essentially going to a system that staff will receive a paper application and we input everything on the back end, which again takes a lot of staff time. So we look to a software system that instead of the applicant taking time to write everything down and then staff taking everything, taking time to type everything, we would have the applicant input everything typed. So it's an electronic permit. We're going to start out by just doing the building permits, the zoning permits, and then eventually we'll get to adding licenses, driveway permits, things like that. So with that and switching to a new system, we are also dealing with all brand new reports. So as it currently stands, we couldn't very easily create a report for you. We could have gave you something, would have been real generic. But now with this, we are somewhat limited to the reports that they have provided to us already. Now I say that with also the caveat that we could have more specific reports and detailed reports with exactly what we're looking for. But it's also going to cost us money, staff time to create them. Specifically, Josh in IT would be creating them. So not too sure of his fondness. We've been having him create a lot already. And he went and took a week off on us. So I'm sure he's not too happy with us, but he's been more than happy to do so. But if it's not necessary to have him spend his staff time or have us pay this company to create the reports, I didn't want to have to. So I guess what I kind of wanted input for was what exactly is the Plan Commission looking for in these reports? Is it something, are we just looking at number of permits, then type of permits, just to say, this month we've done 6 electrical, 4 HVAC, 4 fence, 2 UDC. Is that what we're looking for? Is it that we're looking for total costs that we've brought in for permit fees? Is it looking for estimated cost of all the projects? What specifically, I guess, would the Plan Commission like to see and it can be just in scaled order, but that would give us direction on looking at the reports they already have to see if we can find one that fits to provide to you. Otherwise, if it doesn't, I would come back and I would ask if it's that important, or if maybe 5 of the items we can do, but the 6th one that you guys are looking for, we can't without creating a custom report. I would come back and say, is it of necessity that we have this on this report, that we would need to create a custom report, or is it something we could, go without? So I guess if that makes sense, looking on direction on what exactly you're looking for in a report, what's important to you. And I want to make sure we get you what's important if we're able to, but also just prioritize that. I don't want to give you a report that half of it's meaningless to you.
I guess I do like some of the information in those reports, but would it be possible to maybe either just get a summarization, kind of like what you're saying, either monthly or maybe more detail quarterly or something, just so that we kind of know what's going on throughout the year as far as
projects and
things
okay.
that are going on? Yeah, it doesn't have to be the detail that you've been doing every month, because we don't want to pull your people away from
Sure.
to just give us this data and waste time. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I mean, yeah, I glance at it, I look at it, I see the projects, but I mean, is it all important and useful that we have this information? Probably not. I mean, things are happening, but I would like maybe some high-level summarization of
Sure.
it's kind of some of the things that you said. It's nice to see the numbers a little bit.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think the things that I always look for are new homes that are going up. We don't necessarily have to see the electrical permit, the condition, and the plumbing permit for those, but, number of homes, new homes may be started in a monthly basis. I also like to see the permit, the dollar amount, and maybe just as a comparison to a year ago. And council obviously will deal with that when it comes to the end of the year, how that's all going to be used. And then also things that you've done before where you might permit things in your office that don't come here.
Yes, and those would continue coming in this format.
Okay.
Not a report from that site.
Okay.
So
I think those are real important too,
Okay.
just to give us an update on things that you've been dealing with that aren't necessarily part of our agenda.
yes, and those site plan would continue coming. This would be more looking at like building permits. So clarification question. So you said, number of new homes, which I can completely relate that would be important to know. I guess, are you guys intrigued with how many just HVAC? So if somebody's replacing their furnace, is that something, or if somebody's going to be adding receptacles? Because that's a fair amount of like just our electrical permit or HVAC. It's HVAC is furnace or AC.
Or a window or whatever, people are porch,
Mm-hmm.
things. Yeah, I don't think that matters as much. I like the new homes.
More of the high level things, the big things that you're going to noticeably see, I guess.
Yeah, if the founder's doing something big number things.
Okay.
They're all good stuff. And you could say, you could even in a snippet, as you're doing right now, just say things are trending up this month in permits, or we've seen a slowdown in permits, or just trends are good to know. Or
So if something like if I had our building inspector do a report like this of number of new homes, their average cost, things like that.
Right, and
that
it never hurts to compare.
Sure.
For a year ago, a month ago, whatever. That kind of gives us an idea, too. I mean, and I don't want to make extra work, but in 2022, how many new homes permits have been pulled compared to 2021?
So maybe that's like more of the quarterly report, like you had mentioned, or a mid-year, end-of-year report, just to show that, hey, through the first and second quarters, these are our comparisons. Through the third and fourth, these are okay.
I'm assuming, Jared, that some of the data, those reports, the standard reports are probably built for the municipalities. Like our assessor needs to know those improvements that are done, like decks and all that stuff, right? So those reports are providing that probably.
Yeah, actually,
for the assessor
the
and stuff.
permit we print out for the applicant actually will go to our assessor as well, and it has a
Gotcha.
more detail.
So,
Like,
so they're getting what they need to function and do what they need to do. Yeah.
But you know, Jared, one other thing you might just consider, and Eric would maybe be able to weigh in. We see it here, but that also all goes to the council. And maybe there's some council people who might say, oh, you know, I'd like to see this and that. So you might want to bring the same topic up to the full council
Okay.
and say you talk to the city planning, this is what they think, what do you guys think? Because who knows, maybe some of them would be a little stickler on some of that. Don't know, but they certainly see everything now that we get.
But let them know that we're okay with a scaled down version to lighten up the load, the monthly load.
Yeah, I just think you're wise to do that ahead of time. If you change it and then after the fact, somebody on the council goes, hey, where's all that good stuff we used to look at, you know?
Yeah, and it's, you know, I can definitely do that. You know, I guess one way or the other it's going to have to change. Like, they're not going to see it come forward in this packet at all, you know, things like that. Just as, again, we're trying to transition over. You know, but I think I can definitely bring it to the council's attention. You know, I will say I could probably do that. I guess we have another meeting in November, so I should be able to do that in November and get that on the agenda just as a quick discussion and at least put it in their brains. And
Just tell them what you want to do and see if anybody has anything to say about it. Just say, this is what I'm planning to do. And if somebody has a problem with it, they'll let you know.
Eric said this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I'll write that
And you
down.
discussed it with us, so, yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right, so on that one, there's just sort of a consensus to, you know, make sure you talk maybe to the council or make sure it's clear in the minutes that this is what we're okay with you doing, yeah. Again, I'm a little, keep thinking if these are structured towards municipals, you know, maybe find the simplest report that's already out there.
Yeah,
and
and
shoot us a copy and let's see what it looks like. And we're probably going to be okay with it. You know?
Sure. Yeah, and there might be a report that, you know, does exactly some of these things,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we can do that. I just wanted a general idea. I mean, if more detail, less detail, what exactly is being looked at? I didn't want to just guess, and I wanted some input at least. So
I think it's just important that you're capturing it at your guys' level because you're going to want to look at it for trends and, you know, maybe bringing forth some policy things for council or something, you know.
yeah,
So
yep.
you're going to get, you're still going to get all that data, right?
Yeah, and then I mean we'd more look at the data in a different way probably than we bring it forward here.
Yeah.
You know, more high level overview, the consistent trends, kind of more like the comparisons that Pat was mentioning. But yeah, we definitely would look at certain reports for those sorts of things.
Any further questions or for Jared on that? All right, well, then the next one is development update.
Could I have you scroll to that?
This is all I got.
Perfect. Yeah. So 701 South Industrial. So this is a change of use for actually the conditional use that you guys recommended to council. This change of use is contingent on the CUP approval, but it has been reviewed by my department and would be okay if the CUP is approved by council. A couple in process. 1990 Godfrey Drive, a change of use. So these ones were actually held up by the zoning changes we are doing for River North. So we are now, I'm trying to get back to them and putting those through the rest of the process to get them formally approved. Just as we were initiating that zoning change, we gave a little leeway into them going into that structure, as well as with the thought that that structure has been being used this way for quite some time. So it seemed like the right thing to do for those ones. A couple other ones, the 1310 Royalton Street change of use, lodging house, resource center. That's another CUP you just reviewed and sent to council. Staff has not done a review for that one, so it's still in process. But that one would also be contingent on a CUP approval.
Okay.
But pretty light, I guess, in terms of internal site plans. Working on a couple bigger, more complex ones that take up a bit more time behind the scenes, but are not actually seen through any reports or formal approvals. So a little thankful that it has slowed down for the maybe colder season, and looking forward to getting those bigger projects done and hopefully it ramping back up when summer or spring of 2023 comes. So that's all I got.
Any questions for Jared? Well, it looks like we are done with our business. Motion to adjourn, anybody?
Move to adjourn.
Ivan,
Second.
second by Eric. To adjourn, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Our meeting is adjourned until the next Plan Commission meeting, which would be December
7th.
7th at
Yes.
5:15.